We'd like to thank everybody for showing up for the Midwife Reporting Portal training on May 4th, 2015. My name is Don Gibson. I'm the Bureau Special Licensing Team Lead, and I will be presenting the information and presenting some questions that were given to us after the initial presentation on May 4th. These are the items that we're going to be covering during this presentation. First, the registration for those who have not completed this yet. Incomplete reports, processes for sending back to the midwife and what to expect and the process. Timeframes to resubmit the reports, needing modification. Comments fields, adding additional questions for data purposes. FAQs the Bureau has received about the portal, and additional questions in reference to the portal and functionality, which we will be covering at the end of this presentation. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the actual logon page, and it's going to give you two options, either register or log in. For those who haven't registered, all you would have to do is submit your registration, and the Bureau will approve it, and then you're going to be able to submit your reports without any issues. If you've already registered, you would just click on login, and you would put the username and password that you have chosen when you registered. And then you just click login. So what you want to do is submit a midwife report. Okay, and this is the first section that you're going to come up to, and you just enter the mother's date of birth. Okay, and then you enter a unique chart number. Each midwife can create their own chart numbers that they want to do. Okay, in the last menstrual period, you're going to put the last menstrual period that the client had. And then you can choose that if you want to use the estimated due date from the last menstrual period, you can click yes, and it will automatically calculate the due date. If the client has an erratic menstrual period, you can click no, and it will take that date away. So then you can go ahead and put in what your estimation of the due date is. And then you just put in the gravida and the para. And then number 8, you just please indicate any of the following conditions that apply, and you can just check box any of those that were on there. In this particular case, we're just going to choose none. And you can use the tab to go down to all the different ones to check them. But like I said, in this particular case, there wasn't any. When did midwifery services end? Let's see, we'll do. Question 10, just yes or no. A mother has died under the midwife's care. A stillborn child, at least 20 weeks of gestation, has been delivered by the midwife, or a newborn delivered by the midwife has died within the first 6 weeks. So we'll choose no. Oh. And then you just click continue. Now, this is the next page is for transfer of care. If there was any reason that there had to be transfer of care, you would go ahead and click yes. If there's a transfer of care where the client has chosen to either go to an OBGYN or they wanted to go to another midwife, you would choose yes that there was a transfer of care, but in the comments section, you would actually state as to why the transfer of care occurred. So you would put in comments that they wanted to go to an OBGYN, they decided not to use a midwife, or they wanted to use another midwife. If you choose yes, it's also going to bring up other reasons of transfer of care. So let's go ahead and choose yes. If the transfer of care had to be done to a hospital or a medical facility, then you would put what was the method of the transport, what was the transfer destination, hospital, EMS, physician office, certified midwife, and then you would just answer all the questions if it was an actual transport of care that was done by an EMS, or you had to use the emergency action plan that you discussed with the client before you started services. Okay, so we're going to go back and choose no, and then hit continue. Did the midwife complete the delivery for this client? Yes. Then it will bring up other information about the actual birth of the baby. If no, it's going to go to another page, and you would put comments as to, another midwife performed the birth, they transferred care, something to that effect. But in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and click yes. And if there's any additional information that you want to add to the birth, you can do it in 27. In 28, if there was a prior cesarean section or a fetus in breech or frank presentation in this delivery, you would choose any of those are not applicable. If the mother had any other conditions in question 28, please indicate the progress of labor for the current pregnancy. And this is only required for the VBAC or breech. If it's not a VBAC or breech, then you don't have to do that. When was the delivery date? You just put in what the delivery date was. And it's automatically going to estimate the gestational age based on the estimated due date. In this particular case, it's 40 weeks. You put the gender, and you put the weight. And you notice if you put a number that is not, it has to be within a certain parameter. If you put something that's lower or higher, it's going to let you know. So let's go ahead and do 30. And then 33, what was the weight of the gestational age? Was it an AGA, SGA, and LGA? So we'll just be the average. Now, there has been some questions about what is considered an LGA. Currently, the Bureau is using 4,000 as an LGA. We have asked the midwife community what consensus that they come up with that we would use, because I know there's some things that say 4,500, some say 4,000. There's no standard across the board that what a LGA is. So we have asked the midwife community to come up with a standard so everybody across the board would be using the same the same guide. And was it normal? Were there any existence of complication, normal, preterm, or abnormal? You just choose. If you do abnormal, you just describe what the abnormal complications are. In this particular case, we're just going to do normal. And you notice that it grays out if you do normal. And then what was the filing date for the birth certificate? Again, it has to be 7 days after the birth of the child, or at least 7 days. And chances are you're never going to have the birth certificate number, so that's not a required field. Okay, and this is just additional information. Was the cord blood information provided? Yes or no? If no, just explain why. Was newborn screening provided? Yes or no? Again, if you choose yes, it's going to gray out. If you choose no, then you'll have to put something in. Was hearing screening provided? Yes or no? Same situation. Was the first newborn screening completed? Yes. Mother decline, referred to primary care provider, or no. So if you hit yes, it's going to gray out. Mother declines, gray out. Refer to primary care. And then no, it's going to open it up for you to explain as to why. So we'll put mother decline. Please enter the date that you obtained the informed consent. And this is the form that you discuss with the client before you do the before you sign them on as a client of the midwifery services. And this explains all the scope of practice that you can and cannot do. And it has to be signed by both you and the client. Did the mother receive a medical consultation? Yes or no? So no, it grays out. Yes. Then you would just go ahead and put in information as to, what the consultation was and what the outcome was. Just because you get a consultation doesn't mean you have to do what the physician or the CNM or whoever did the consultation says, but you do need to discuss with the client the pros and cons of the consultation, and that should be documented in your in your file in case we ever do request it. And then you hit continue, and then you're done, and you click the done button, and it's going to submit. Now, in the case that there's some additional information that we need, we can send it back to you. At this particular point, also, you can print it out for your files. But you can also log back in and you can print out anything that you previously submitted. So it's not going to be gone forever. So you're always going to have access to what you submitted to all your individual reports. But at this particular point, you can print it and you have a copy of what you did. In the case that we require additional information or there's something not quite right about a particular date, because you can put a date in there and you may not get an error, but it was just incorrectly entered, we will send it back to the midwife. In that particular case, you will get an email in the email that you gave us when you registered saying that there is a report that needs to be modified. Now, we're asking that the midwives get those back to us as soon as possible because it really helps for data for the Midwife Advisory Committee. The most complete data that we have to give them, the better. So we really ask that you get them within 5 days from the time that we send them to you for correction. Now, we know that there are times when you can't, but because vacation or something to that effect, but get them back to the Bureau as soon as possible with the completed information so that we can review it and close it out and go from there. Okay, and now we're going to go to some of the questions that we have received in reference to the portal. One of the questions was, can the portal have a place that can list other LMs and the duties that they perform? The Bureau is reviewing modifications to the portal that would allow the reporting LM to add additional LMs to the report that have provided service to the same client. And we will provide more details and instructions when changes come to the portal are completed. We have submitted some information to get these changes, but it is going to take time. But once that is done, we will notify all the midwives that this has been added to the portal. The next question is, in the rule, it states that the EDD is calculated by the last LMP. How does an LM calculate EDD for a client who has an erratic LMP? The Bureau is going to be publishing a substantive policy statement for a case when a client has an erratic LMP. Basically, it's going to say the ultrasound completed before the beginning of the second trimester can be used to establish a confirmed gestational age. Ultrasounds in the second and third trimester are not as accurate. In the second trimester there could be a plus or minus 714 days of the gestation, And in the third trimester, there could be a plus or minus 21 to 30 days. And this resource is from ACOG as far as when to get the ultrasounds. But the Bureau will be publishing a substantive policy statement in the near future. The next question is, how do you fill out the reporting for a miscarriage, and how long can an LM provide care after a miscarriage? By ACOG definition, a miscarriage is a fetal loss before 20 weeks. The LM should report the services provided on the first and last page of the report and use the comments to state that it was a miscarriage prior to 20 weeks. And again, the 6-week postpartum would be the timeframes to provide midwifery services to the client. And again, at the bottom of the page is the link to ACOG in reference to a miscarriage. A question about stillbirths or fetal deaths that occur after 20 weeks of gestation. This would be classified as a stillbirth on the report, and 6 weeks postpartum would be the timeframes to provide midwifery services to the client. And again, a link to the ACOG in reference to stillbirths or miscarriages. Another question, are you finding that the data you are collecting is proving safety of midwives and home births? The data that is being collected will be analyzed by the Midwife Advisory Committee, and their findings will be submitted to the Director of the Department of Health Services on or before November 15th of 2015. So currently there is no analysis of the data that is being collected. It's currently just being collected, it's being formatted, and all that information will be submitted to the Director by November 15th. Another question was, what are the list of qualifiers that indicate a request for a complete chart? There isn't any qualifiers, but per ARS 36-756.01, the Bureau may request files to review to ensure procedures have been followed for the health and safety of the client and the newborn. And then there was a question about prohibited practices. Anything that develops or occurs as listed in R916-111 must generate a transfer of care, and midwifery services must end at that time. And that concludes the presentation that was given on May 4th. If there's any questions, you can provide those to the Bureau of Special Licensing, and we'll be glad to add these to our FAQs. Thank you very much.